So the history of housing associations in the United Kingdom goes back a long time, over 150 years. We called it the Victorian age. There were a lot of problems for housing for the poor. There were very poor conditions, slums. It was very, very hard. And a couple of very enlightened business people and people who had a social mission wanted to change and improve the conditions for the poor. When they died, they left money to support, to build homes for the poor. And quite a few housing associations were set up over 100 years ago just to do that, to create much nicer conditions, much more affordable and much more secure properties for poor people. They were just quite small, and actually most social housing in the UK was actually council housing. So after the two wars, the government gave a lot of money to local councils to build, and most public housing was actually council owned. But the next big push for housing associations was actually in the 1960s. And they just bought up properties a little bit by little bit in the centre of big cities at a time when actually prices were quite low. And they would use the equity from one property to get a mortgage on another property, and slowly they grew and grew. In the 1970s, the government decided that actually they would give grant to housing associations. So actually these housing associations, which were very small at the time, actually started to grow because they would get a grant from the government to actually build new properties. And then in the late 1980s and 1990s, there was a desire. A lot of council housing stock that had been built back in the 1950s and 60s was falling down, and the conditions, they weren't very well designed, and there were real problems on these estates. A lot of councils transferred their stock to housing associations, some of which were new and some of which were existing. But in all of these cases, housing associations were set up with a desire to make the world a better place.